It was a mild and pleasant afternoon in early spring, the sort of day when London sheds its winter gloom and the air carries the faint promise of renewal. The sun poured gently through the half-drawn blinds of our sitting room at 221B Baker Street, casting long golden stripes upon Holmes's scattered papers and the corner of his violin case. Holmes sat opposite me in his accustomed chair, his tall, spare figure bent over a delicate chemical experiment. The faint odor of some reagent drifted through the room, mingling with the comforting aroma of my after-luncheon pipe. For my own part, I was engaged in jotting notes upon one of his more recent cases, an affair so singular in its method and motive that I was half inclined to send it to publication.
Without looking up. Watson, my dear fellow, your hand wavers. The line you just drew resembles a snake more than a signature. I deduce you are thinking of something altogether different from ink and paper.
Smiling, I was merely wondering, Holmes, whether you would ever tire of these endless investigations. Ray, you seem to thrive on puzzles as other men do on food.
My dear Watson, a puzzle is sustenance to the mind. When one ceases to seek the answer, the intellect starves. Observe, for instance, this reagent, chloride of lime. A simple compound, yet its reaction tells volumes. Now, contrast that with our city, millions of reagents, each reacting upon the other. It is the grandest laboratory on earth.
You are incorrigible, Holmes. If London is your laboratory, I am content to be your humble assistant, though at times I confess your deductions still astonish me.
With quiet amusement, astonishment, Watson, is the first step to understanding. You recall the principle, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Indeed, you've often quoted that maxim, yet I sometimes wonder whether you apply it to people as well as to facts.
People, my dear Watson, are merely facts with hearts attached, infinitely more complex, and therefore infinitely more instructive.
Leaning back, and yet you claim not to understand the fairer sex at all.
Raising an eyebrow, I said, I do not study them, not that I fail to observe them. Observation is the key, emotion, the rust that blunts it.
Laughing, you are a philosopher, Holmes, though you would deny it.
Possibly, but philosophy must yield to practice. And speaking of which, he turns toward the window. Do you hear the trot of a cab on Baker Street? That is no ordinary visitor. The driver reins with precision, military hand, not a cabman's slouch.
Rising to pierce through the window, you are right, Holmes. The man alighting wears a heavy riding coat splashed with mud up to the knee. Whereas there's the gleam of a whip in his hand, and his gait, by Jove, he's been in the saddle for hours.
Smiling slightly. Excellent, Watson. Your powers of observation improve daily. You may add that he comes from the north, perhaps from Derbyshire, judging by the clay adhering to the sole of his boots. And, unless I am mistaken, he bears tidings of the turf.
The turf? You mean horse racing?
Precisely. We shall soon know.
As the doorbell rings below, Mrs. Hudson seems to have admitted him. I hear his boots on the stair. Firm, rapid, a man used to command.
Then let us receive our guest as befits the consulting detective and his chronicler.
Aside to the audience, it was always thus with Holmes. One moment, absorbed in chemical vapors, the next, keen and alert as a hound scenting prey. I had scarcely time to set aside my notebook when the door opened and a tall, dark-faced man entered, his riding coat still glistening with damp.
Bowing stiffly. Beg pardon, gentlemen. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I take it?
The same. And you, sir, are Mr. John Mason, head trainer at Shoscombe Old Place, formerly in the service of Sir Robert Norberton. Am I correct?
Starter. Why, bless my soul, sir, you've named me and my place in one breath.
It is simplicity itself. The clay upon your boots is peculiar to the paddocks of Berkshire. The stain of saddle oil on your left sleeve bespeaks professional care, and that pin in your cravat, shaped like a horse's head, is from the Shoscombe Cut series. Pray, take a seat and tell me what brings you to Baker Street.
Sitting? It's a queer business, Mr. Holmes. Queer and troubling. I come by order of Sir Robert himself. He is in great anxiety.
writing in notebook, Sir Robert Norberton, I know the name. Sportsman, owner of racehorses, brother to Lady Beatrice Folder of Shoscombe Old Place, stays asking for it.
That's the gentleman, sir. The truth is, things are not right at Shoscombe. I've been there these 10 years, and I've never seen the like.
Quietly. Go on, Mr. Mason. What exactly has occurred?
It began some weeks ago. Sir Robert's always been a bit hot-tempered, but lately he's been strange, secretive, nervous, given to sudden fits of rage. And Lady Beatrice, well, she's an invalid and seldom leaves her room, but the servants whisper that something's amiss there too.
In what way?
Her maid, that's Mrs. Norlett, won't let a soul see her. Not even me, though I've known her ladyship since she was a girl. And the queerest thing of all, every night, Sir Robert rides down to the old crypt of the ruined chapel near the stables. Alone, mind you, and stays there for an hour or more.
Leaning forward, the crypt, you say? Interesting. Does he carry anything with him?
A dark lantern and sometimes a bundle wrapped in a shawl. I've seen it under his arm.
Aside, a lonely crypt, a secret bundle, and a nervous nobleman, the very elements of one of our darker adventures.
You did well to come, Mr. Mason. Tell me more of the household. You spoke of Lady Beatrice, her health, her habits.
Poor soul, she's been weak for years, but she loved her horses and the stables were her joy. These last months, she hasn't been near them, not once. That's what set the grooms talking. And then, there's her dog.
A dog.
A big black spaniel. Used to follow her everywhere, but now the brute snarls. If ever Sir Robert goes near it, it's like the beast knows something we don't.
An animal's instinct may often anticipate human reason. Anything further?
Well, sir, there's the matter of money. Sir Robert's deep in debt. If ought not, he's banking everything on his horse, Shoscombe Prince, to win the Derby. If he loses, he's ruined. But still, I can't think that's cause enough for these queer doings.
Quite so. Financial pressure may distort a man's judgment, but it rarely drives him to haunt a crypt. You've given me much to ponder, Mr. Mason.
To Mason, and Lady Beatrice, is she still residing in the same wing of the house?
Yes, sir. Her apartments are in the east wing, overlooking the park. But as I said, no one has seen her for days, save her maid.
Thoughtfully, the east wing, the crypt, and the dog's hostility, a curious trinity.
You think there may be foul play?
I think, my dear Watson, that there is mystery, and where there is mystery, there may be truth to uncover. Mr. Mason, you shall hear from me shortly. For now, say nothing to anyone of this visit.
You have my word, sir. I'll expect you at Shoscombe if you see fit to come.
Narrating. When he had gone, leaving a faint odor of horse and stable in the air, Holmes rose and stood for a long while by the window, his gaze fixed on the drifting clouds above Baker Street.
Softly, Watson, there's work ahead. The turf has its mysteries as deep as any alley in London. Pack your bag, my dear fellow. We go to Shoscombe.
Sense, closing his notebook, to Shoscombe, and whatever secrets its old stones may hide, to audience. Thus began our latest adventure, one that would lead us from the tranquil paddocks of Owen, the English countryside, to the shadowed crypt of a decaying chapel, and to a revelation as strange as any in the annals of Mr. Sherlock Holmes. It was upon a chill and misty morning, 2 days later, that we left London behind us. Our train steamed westward, its rhythmic pulse beating time with my own anticipation. Few sensations compared to the thrill of a new case begun, and beside me Sherlock Holmes sat silent and absorbed, his grey eyes fixed upon the window, though I suspected he saw little of the passing countryside. Continuing narration, the fields of Berkshire rolled past in muted greens, the hedgerows glistening with dew. Here and there, a ploughman leaned upon his share to watch the train thunder by. I occupied myself with the morning paper, though my thoughts were more upon our errand than upon its headlines. Folding the paper. Holmes, you've scarcely spoken since we left Paddington. Are you pondering Mr. Mason's curious story?
Without turning his head, I am pondering facts, Watson, and the absence thereof. You will recall that our informant gave us impressions, not evidence. Impressions may mislead, facts never do.
Yet the tale of the crypt and Lady Beatrice's seclusion, surely there's substance there.
Indeed, but note the sequence. Sir Robert's anxiety over his debts, his nightly visits to a burial vault, his sister's unseen presence, and a dog's sudden hostility. 4 threads apparently disjointed. It is our task to discover whether they weave a single pattern.
Leaning forward eagerly, and you believe the answer lies at Shoscombe itself.
Where else? There are limits even to my imagination, my dear fellow. Ha! Direct observation must replace conjecture.
Smiling observation. The eternal word in your vocabulary.
With quiet amusement and deduction its natural offspring.
Narrating. We changed trains at Reading, and by noon we were driving in a high trap along a winding country road lined with budding elms. A thin drizzle had begun to fall, and the smell of wet earth and horses filled the air. Presently, the driver pointed ahead to a cluster of grey chimneys rising beyond a park wall of ancient brick.
Yeah, that'll be Shoscombe Old Place, gentlemen. Fine old house, some say haunted.
Lightly haunted by debt collectors, perhaps.
Chuckling, maybe so, sir. They say Sir Robert's not been himself of late. Wild as the March hare, some folk reckon.
Holmes exchanged a brief glance with me, but made no reply. When at last the trap drew up before the gatehouse, he leapt lightly to the ground, his keen gaze sweeping over the estate.
Observe, Watson, the windows shuttered in the east wing, though it is barely noon. The gravel freshly raked, yet the carriage path bears no recent wheel marks. Curious, is it not?
Perhaps the household seeks privacy.
Or secrecy? There's a difference.
Narrating, we were met by John Mason, who led us at once to the stables. The smell of hay, leather, and horseflesh greeted us as we entered a world in which Holmes, though no sportsman, moved with surprising ease.
Here we are, gentlemen. That's Shoscombe Prince in the third stall. Finest blood in England, if you ask me. Sir Robert's fare set his soul upon him for the Derby.
Examining the horse, a magnificent creature indeed. You keep him in excellent condition, Mr. Mason. Tell me, has Sir Robert's manner towards you altered of late?
He's sharper-tongued than he used to be, sir. Quick to flare up. But then, I can't blame him much. The bookmakers have been hounding him. And he's not slept easy in weeks.
Nodding slowly. Anxiety has a scent all its own, and yet I fancy his fears spring from something deeper than mere debt.
Looking around, these stables are spotless, Holmes. You'd think every straw were counted.
Smiling faintly, perfection often hides panic, Watson. The untidy man is rarely deceitful. The immaculate one often has something to conceal.
Uneasily, there's more, Mr. Holmes. Last night, I saw Sir Robert again. Down by the crypt. He carried a bundle, same as before. I swear, I heard the clink of metal within it.
Quickly, metal? Not coin by any chance.
Sounded heavier, sir. Like chain or ironwork. He was down there near an hour.
Thoughtfully, we must inspect that crypt. But first, I would see Lady Beatrice's dog.
He's in the yard yonder. Best you keep clear, sir. He's taken to growling at strangers.
Narrating, the dog, a great black spaniel with sorrowful eyes, lay chained near the stable door. At our approach, he rose, hackles bristling, and uttered a low, menacing growl.
Softly. Easy now, old fellow. We mean no harm. He stooped, extending his hand. Note, Watson, how he sniffs the air and then recoils. Precisely as Mason described.
He dislikes Sir Robert, yet fears him perhaps.
A singular combination. Animals, my dear Watson, are unerring judges of character and of scent. There is something about Sir Robert that offends this creature's instinct.
Observing, you think the scent of guilt?
Or of decay.
Aside, Holmes's words chilled me, though the day was mild. Ooh.
Come, Mason, take us to the chapel.
Narrating, we followed him across the park, the grass damp beneath our boots. Beyond a line of ancient yews rose the ruins of the old Shoscombe chapel, roofless, ivy-clad, its crumbling walls enclosing a darkness that seemed older than memory itself.
That's the place, gentlemen. The vault's down those steps. I've not dared go in myself.
Taking out a lantern, Then we shall relieve you of the duty. Watson, your revolver, you have it?
Always, Holmes.
Excellent. Stay close then.
Narrating. The air grew colder as we descended into the vault. Moisture dripped from the stone ceiling, and the lantern's light flickered over rows of ancient coffins. The smell of damp earth and age-old decay filled the place. Holmes moved ahead, silent as a shadow.
Observe, Watson. Footprints in the dust. Recent, too. The pattern is from a riding boot. Small heel, sharp edge.
Sir Robert's, perhaps?
Undoubtedly. And here, candle grease upon the lid of this coffin.
Bending closer, and the lid itself, it's been moved.
Precisely. See the fine scratches on the hinge. Someone has opened this coffin within the last few nights.
Horrified Holmes. Surely not.
Let us look further before we leap to conclusions.
Narrating, he drew a thin-bladed knife from his pocket and walked it gently beneath the lid. With a faint creak, the coffin opened, revealing not a moldering corpse, but the hollow emptiness of an unused shell. In a low voice, empty, but what can it mean?
It means, Watson, that the occupant has either been removed or was never placed here at all.
You suspect substitution?
I suspect concealment, and I would wager a guinea that whatever Sir Robert carries in his nightly bundle finds its resting place in this vault.
Uneasily. You think he hides something here, something of value?
Perhaps not value in the worldly sense. Guilt may drive a man to hide far stranger things.
Narrating, we retraced our steps into the grey daylight. The drizzle had thickened into rain, and the ancient yews stirred restlessly in the wind. Holmes paused, glancing back at the dark mouth of the crypt.
There is death in that place, Watson, though not necessarily the death one expects.
Troubled, you speak in riddles, Holmes.
All life is a riddle, my dear fellow. We shall soon enough read the answer.
Narrating back at the house, we took rooms in the old inn adjoining the estate, where Holmes spent the evening pacing before the fire, pipe in mouth, eyes half closed in meditation. At last he turned to me.
Watson, there is a shadow over Shoscombe Old Place, and tomorrow we shall trace its outline to the source.
Then you mean to visit Sir Robert himself?
Indeed, I think it time the hunter showed himself to the fox.
Yes. Narrating thus ended our first day in that strange and haunted place, a day filled with unease and the unanswered questions. As I extinguished the lamp and listened to the rain upon the window pane, Jazzin, I could not shake the image of that empty coffin, nor the thought that somewhere in the night, in Sag, Sir Robert Norberton might even now be descending once more into the vault with his secret burden. Yeah, dear. The morning broke grey and still, with a light mist curling above the paddocks. From my window at the inn, I could see the chimneys of Shoscombe Old Place, rising through the haze like sentinels of a troubled past. Holmes was already dressed when I came down to breakfast, his long frame outlined against the faint glow of the fire. Mature for use. Narrating, he stood by the mantel, pipe in hand, the lines of thought already carved upon his austere face. To look upon him thus was to see intellect incarnate, restless, unsatisfied, seeking always that next spark of revelation.
Without turning, you observe, Watson, the quality of the fog.
Pouring coffee. A typical Berkshire mist, I should think. Damp, clinging, unpleasant.
Smiling faintly. Precisely. It diffuses light, muffles sound, and confuses direction, an ally to the watcher and the watched alike. We shall use it to our advantage.
Raising an eyebrow, you mean to make our approach under cover of the weather?
You grasp it instantly. We shall call at the manor as two gentlemen travellers interested in the Derby favourite Shoscombe Prince. Curiosity of the sporting public, you understand. Once admitted, we shall see what the East Wing conceals.
Dryly, you forget, Holmes, that I've been a soldier and a doctor, not a bookmaker.
Then you shall pose as the horse's potential physician, to ensure he runs in perfect condition. Your profession, as always, comes to our aid.
Narrating, after a brief meal we set out, the mist dampening our coats and muffling the clatter of our boots upon the gravel drive. The house itself loomed ahead, Vast, grey, and solemn, its facade ornamented with time-stained stonework and high mullioned windows that stared blankly upon the park. Continuing, Sir Robert received us in a drawing room whose faded splendor told of better days. He was a tall, athletic man, his face bronzed by years of outdoor life, yet lined deeply with care. The quick flash of his eye and the restless twitch of his hands betrayed the strain under which he labored.
Bowing slightly, Sir Robert Norberton, I presume. My name is Vernet, a small student of bloodlines, and this is my friend, Dr. Gost, Watson, who takes an interest in equine health.
Sharply. You are here about the prince then? Well, you've come at a bad time. The horse is fit, and I've no mind for idle chatter.
I quite understand, Sir Robert. Yet, as a man who has backed the prince to win, I could not resist the opportunity of seeing him in his own stables.
A faint smile flickering. Ah, a betting man, eh? You will find him in fine form. Still, you must excuse me. My sister's indisposed, and my affairs are pressing.
Politely, we would not detain you, sir. A brief look at the stables will suffice.
Gruffly. Very well. Mason will attend you.
Narrating, he left us abruptly, striding from the room, with the air of one pursued by unseen thoughts. Holmes watched him go with that half-closed gaze I knew so well, the look of a hawk marking its quarry.
Softly, observe, Watson, agitation under the mask of civility. His sleeve bears a smudge of clay, such as we saw near the crypt. He has been there this morning.
Amazed, you saw that in the briefest glance?
With quiet amusement, to a trained eye, a man's cuff is as legible as his conscience.
Narrating, Mason appeared shortly thereafter, and under his guidance, we visited the stables once more. Holmes examined each stall, noting trifles invisible to me. A misplaced wisp of straw, a faint indentation on a doorframe, a grain of white powder near a feed trough. Curious, you find something of importance?
Each detail, Watson, is like a note in a symphony. Alone, it means little. Together, they form meaning. This powder, nitrate of strychnine, I fancy, used to sharpen a racehorse's wind when administered in infinitesimal doses. Yet if given unwisely, it kills.
Alarmed, you believe someone is doping the horse?
Perhaps, or perhaps a host experiments too far in his desperation.
Narrating as we spoke, the sound of carriage wheels drew near. A maid crossed the courtyard, bearing a shawl and basket. Her features were pale and composed, but there was a nervousness in her glance.
In a low tone, that, Watson, must be Mrs. Norlett, Lady Beatrice's maid. Let us observe.
Narrating, she paused by the east wing door, glanced swiftly about, and entered. Holmes's eyes followed her every motion.
Curious, Watson. Did you note that the shawl she carries is of deep violet hue, mourning color? Yet no one has spoken of a death in the family.
You think Lady Beatrice is dead?
I think Lady Beatrice has ceased to live as others do, in flesh or in freedom, which we have yet to learn.
Narrating, later that afternoon, Holmes proposed that we walk the grounds, ostensibly to admire the horses' exercise. The mist had lifted, and the air hung heavy with the scent of wet earth. From the avenue of elms we could see the eastern windows of the house, still shuttered tight. Continuing, as we strolled, Holmes suddenly paused, his gaze fixed upon a figure that had just appeared at one of those windows. A woman, tall and thin, wrapped in a shawl. For an instant she stood there, looking out, then vanished from sight. In awe, Holmes, that must be Lady Beatrice herself.
Perhaps, or her phantom. Did you mark the posture, the stiffness of the neck? That was not the movement of an invalid.
But the resemblance, Mason said, Lady Beatrice was frail, yet the face.
Cutting in. The face, Watson, is what we must question most. I have seen that woman before, though where, I cannot yet recall.
Narrating, we returned to the inn, and Holmes spent the evening sketching diagrams upon the back of an envelope, his brow furrowed in deep reflection. At last, near midnight, he rose abruptly.
Watson, we shall visit the crypt again tonight.
Started? In this darkness? Surely we have learned enough for one day.
On the contrary, we have learned only what they wished us to see by daylight. Come, bring your revolver and your stoutest nerves.
Narrating. The moon had risen pale and wan as we crept through the park once more. Chapel stood in ghostly silhouette, its broken arch gleaming like a wound in the night. Within the ward, our lantern's glow flickered over the same empty coffin, yet now, beside it, lay something new. In a hushed tone, Holmes, a freshly disturbed patch of earth, and the mark of a spade.
Kneeling. So our night visitor returns again. Ah, here, fibers of coarse cloth, torn from a shawl, the violet one, if I am not mistaken.
Then Mrs. Norlett has been here. Has!
Precisely. And whatever secret she guards for her mistress or her master lies beneath this soil.
Narrating, Holmes brushed away the loose earth with deft fingers until the metal edge of a small bow gleamed in the light. He lifted it gently. It was of polished oak, bound with iron.
Examining. A lady's jewel casket, Watson, and of old workmanship.
Whispering, "Open it, Holmes."
Coolly. Not yet. To open another secret too soon is to lose the lesson it may teach. We shall wait.
Narrating, he replaced the box exactly as we had found it and covered it once more. Then, taking my arm, he led the way back toward the inn.
Softly. Patience, Watson. Tomorrow, Sir Robert shall reveal himself more clearly, though not by choice.
Narrating, that night, sleep awaited me. The wind moaned through the inn's chimneys, and every gust seemed to carry the whisper of some unseen watcher. In the darkness, Holmes's calm silhouette was visible against the dim glow of his pipe. Continuing, at length he spoke, a low murmur, as though thinking aloud.
There is a limit to deceit, even for the desperate. A man may hide his debts, his shame, even his dead, but never his fear.
Quietly, and tomorrow we confront his fear.
Yes, my dear Watson, tomorrow we unmask the shadow in the east wing.
To the audience, thus ended our second night at Shoscombe Old Place, with a sense that the living and the dead alike were stirring behind its ancient walls. The truth, though still veiled, hovered near, awaiting the dawn, awaiting the dawn. Ella, the dawn came thin and pale, the mist dispersing into threads that drifted across the park. From my window at the inn, I could see Holmes already abroad, pacing the dew-laden road with his hands clasped behind him. His tall figure looked like some grey wraith conjured from the fog itself. When I joined him, he merely nodded, eyes bright with sleepless energy.
You see, Watson, the day breaks clearly, a good omen. Today, the truth will no longer hide in shadow.
You've formed your conclusion then?
I have formed an hypothesis, and we shall test it, as a chemist tests a reagent. A single spark will decide whether it explodes into certainty or smoke.
And that spark?
Mrs. Norlett's courage. If I am right, she has borne a burden heavy enough to crush a lesser woman.
Narrating, we broke our fast quickly, and before 9 o'clock were once more upon the gravel drive of Shoscombe Old Place. The sun struggled through the thinning clouds, glinting on the damp stonework and awakening the park to life. Somewhere, a groom whistled softly, a horse snorted in the stable yard. Yet beneath this ordinary calm, I sensed the tension of a household holding its breath. Continuing, at the door we were met not by Sir Robert but by Mrs. Norlett herself. Her face, pale and drawn, bore the unmistakable marks of sleepless nights.
Gentlemen, Sir Robert has gone riding. He asks that you call later in the day.
Gently. We shall not detain you long, madam. I am Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and this is Dr. Watson. We are here in friendship, but also in the cause of truth.
Startled Sherlock Holmes. Then you know.
I know enough to fear for you, and for Sir Robert, unless the truth is spoken. Tell me, Mrs. Norlett, where is Lady Beatrice?
Clutching her hands. You must not ask me that, sir. For pity's sake.
Firmly. She is dead, is she not? And yet you have passed her off as living.
In a whisper. It was his doing, sir. Sir Robert's. He could not bear to lose the horses, the house, everything. He begged me to keep the secret until after the derby.
Gently, then Lady Beatrice.
Died a week ago, doctor, peacefully, in her chair. I was with her. But the creditors, if they'd known, Sir Robert would be ruined. Her property was hers alone, and at her death it would pass to others. He made me swear to feign that she still lived, to take her place in the window, to drive in her carriage, veiled.
Gravely. And the body.
He hid it, sir. God forgive him in the crypt.
Aside, I felt a chill run through me as her trembling confession filled the cold morning air. Holmes alone remained unmoved, though his eyes softened with a strange compassion.
You have done wrong, Mrs. Norlett, but out of loyalty, not malice. Still, the law will demand the truth. Helpings of dined.
I would have spoken sooner, but he is my husband.
Astonished, your husband? Your husband?
Hey, sir, we were wed secretly years ago. He has always been good to me until these last terrible days.
Softly. So the maid was wife to the master. The knot tightens, Watson. Come. We must find Sir Robert before despair drives him to madness.
Narrating, we left the stricken woman in the hall and crossed the park toward the stables. There we found Mason, uneasy and anxious.
You've heard then, Mr. Holmes? I knew something was wrong, but I never guessed.
Cutting him short. Sir Robert, where is he?
Down by the crypt again, sir. Said he'd be back before the bell for luncheon.
Come, Watson. This time we end it.
Narrating, we made our way swiftly through the dripping yews. The chapel loomed ahead, its stones glistening after the night's rain. As we neared the open vault, the echo of iron striking earth reached our ears. Low voice, he's there.
Whispering, steady, now. Let him speak first.
Narrating, peering down, we saw Sir Robert kneeling beside the coffin we had examined before. His face was pale, his coat smeared with damp soil. A small box lay open beside him, its contents a miniature portrait and a few jewels scattered upon the flagstones.
Calmly stepping forward. Good morning, Sir Robert. You seem occupied with your devotions.
Starting violently, Holmes. You! What are you doing here?
Completing what you began, Sir Robert. Shall I assist you in restoring Lady Beatrice to her rightful rest?
Horse. So you know it all then. Curse me, I might have guessed.
Narrating, he sank upon the stone bench, his face buried in his hands. At last he spoke. It was with the weary resignation of a man who has fought too long against fate.
She died in her chair, Holmes. Died without a word. I loved her in my rough way. She was all I had left. And yet, ruin stood waiting at the door. If they'd known she was gone, the estate, the stables, the horses, all would be lost before the Derby.
So you hid her death.
I could not let it end like that. I thought, a few weeks, that was all I needed. Mason suspected, but he'd not betray me. Then you came, with those damned eyes of yours.
Quietly. And the nightly visits to this vault?
To bring her little things, her jewels, her letters. I could not leave them to strangers.
Softly, Sir Robert, you risked prison for a sentiment.
Bitterly, prison I could bear. But failure, disgrace, never. The prince is sure to win. With the purse, I could have redeemed it all.
Gravely. Even the dead must rest, Sir Robert. You have violated that peace.
Rising suddenly, then arrest me, if you will. The game's up.
Placing a hand on his arm, the law may show mercy if truth is told freely. Go to Scotland Yard yourself. Confession is better than pursuit.
Narrating, for a moment he stood trembling, then his shoulders sagged.
Very well, I'll go. Only let her lie here till after the service. She loved the chapel.
Gently, she shall not be disturbed again.
Narrating, we walked back together through the quiet park. Three figures bound by a secret now lay. The bare. At the house, Mrs. Norlett awaited us, her face ashen but composed. Hem spoke with a rare kindness.
Your husband has resolved to surrender himself, madam. You will need courage for what lies ahead.
Faintly, I ask only that the world know she died in peace.
That much, I promise.
Narrating, Holmes then turned to Mason.
Mr. Mason, see that the prince is entered for the derby as planned. Whatever befalls, Sir Robert would wish that.
I'll do it, sir, and I thank you for them both.
Continuing, it was near sunset when we left Shoscombe Old Place behind us. Quite, the last light of day glimmered on the chapel roof and touched the yews with fire. Holmes walked in silence beside me until the house was lost from view. After a pause, Holmes, even you must feel pity for the man.
I do, Watson. He sinned through love and pride, the two strongest motives known to humanity. Yet sentiment must not blind justice. The body must be laid before the authorities, and his confession with it.
And Mrs. Norlett,
The law is human, my dear fellow. Her part was born of devotion. I shall see that her name is spared.
narrating, we reached the inn as the first stars trembled in the violet sky. Holmes seated himself by the fire and drew long upon his pipe. For a time he said nothing, lost in thought. At length he spoke, half to himself.
There are tragedies, Watson, which lie too deep for the gallows. The law punishes the act. Conscience punishes the soul.
Quietly, you think Sir Robert's conscience would be his true jailer?
Undoubtedly. When the prince runs at Epsom, he will not watch from the grandstand, but from a cell. Yet, if the horse wins, perhaps he will feel that justice, in its strange fashion, has been served.
So narrating, Holmes rose then, stretched his lean limbs, and glanced toward the window where the last glow of sunset faded.
Come, Watson, let us send word to the yard. Our work here is done, almost.
Almost?
There remains the small matter of truth's dignity. Lady Beatrice shall rest in honour and her name unsullied. That, at least, I can ensure.
Narrating. And so, while the night closed around us and the fire burned low, Sherlock Holmes sat penning a brief note, not to the press or the police, but to the vicar of Shoscombe, instructing him in quiet terms to see that a lady's remains were given Christian burial. Putting, when he had sealed it, he laid his pipe aside and smiled faintly.
Another case, Watson, not of crime, but of frailty. And the frailest thing in all this world is the human heart.
Softly, indeed, Holmes, yet sometimes even frailty can be noble. To the audience, thus ended the strange and melancholy affair of Shoscombe Old Place, a tale of pia, idea and affection, of deception born not of greed but of love. Yet I knew, as we took the train back to London next morning, that it would linger long in Holmes's thoughts, a reminder that even the keenest mind must bow before the mysteries of the heart. It was 2 days after our return to London when the affair of Shoscombe Old Place reached its holy close. The morning papers carried but a modest notice. Aristocratic racing enthusiast confesses to conceal. Meant of death. No further proceedings expected. Holmes, Impridge, I observed, made no comment. No, I caught him glancing at the column more than once, curious softness in his usually impassive features. Narrating, our familiar rooms in Baker Street seemed doubly warm and comforting after the chill glow. Home of the Derbyshire Crypt. The coal fire burned bright, and the cheerful clutter of Holmes's experiments, retorts, test tubes, and scattered monographs returned the apartment to its usual air of controlled disorder. I was writing up my notes of the case when Holmes, lounging in his chair, broke the silence.
You are chronicling our little adventure, Watson. Take care that you do not turn a tragedy into a romance.
Smiling, a little color, Holmes helps the reader to feign the scene.
Color, yes, but not sentimentality. Truth is dramatic enough when stripped to its essentials.
You forget, my dear fellow, that I write not for the logician, but for the public, who demand a touch of humanity amid your admirable reasoning.
Humanity, Watson, is what misleads most reasoners. The heart clouds the lens of deduction.
Good-humouredly, and yet in this instance I fancy it was your heart that tempered justice. You could have handed Sir Robert straight to Lestrade.
Possibly. But you see, Watson, I have learned that the law's object is order, not vengeance. In Sir Robert's confession, the balance of order was restored. There was no profit to be gained by his ruin.
Reflective, the newspapers say he will leave England for the continent.
A wise course. Public curiosity is short-lived, but scandal leaves a stain. Perhaps, in some quiet French valley, he may find peace, and remember that the truth, though bitter, is the only ground on which one may rebuild.
Narrating, Holmes leaned back, clasping his hands behind his head, eyes half closed. The smoke from his pipe curled upward, making pale rings that dissolved into the lamplight. Continuing, I had long since ceased to marvel at his strange moods, the sudden passage from cold recision to almost poetic reverie. Yet that night, as the wind hummed against the window panes, I felt the atmosphere of our old adventures return with full force, the familiar armchairs, the ticking of the clock, the faint scent of tobacco and chemicals. It was all one with the image of Holmes himself, the eternal student of human motives. Holmes, may I ask, when first you saw that fragment of bone in the ashes, what convinced you it was human?
Smiling faintly, "My dear Watson, that should have been evident to anyone with an elementary knowledge of anatomy. The curvature of the shaft, the texture of the cancelated tissue, clearly not equine.
You shame me, Holmes. I should have noticed as much.
Not at all. You observed faithfully, but you failed to deduce. Observation is seeing. Deduction is linking what is seen to what must follow.
Then deduction is a kind of logic?
It is logic applied to life. From 1,000 trifles, each meaningless alone, one infers the chain of necessity that binds cause to effect. For instance, when you wrote in your notes that Sir Robert's hands were stained but his nails clean, what did that suggest to you?
That he had been handling something dirty but not digging, perhaps?
Precisely. Which pointed to the handling of damp stone or earth in confined spaces. A vault, for instance. Thus, deduction begins not with knowledge but with attention.
Admiringly, you make it sound so simple.
Simplicity itself, when one has trained the mind to exclude the irrelevant. Most men see, but do not perceive, hear, but do not interpret. The art of reasoning is the art of exclusion and number.
Narrating his words, uttered with quiet conviction, carried that peculiar authority which even his critics could never dispute. I have often thought that the true fascination of Holmes lay not in his triumphs but in the relentless discipline of his intellect, a mind forever sharpening itself against the whetstone of fact. There was still one question that troubled me. Holmes, you said at Shoscombe that the strongest motives are love and pride, yet you have always professed yourself free from both. Are you not then at a disadvantage in understanding mankind?
With a dry laugh. On the contrary, Watson, the surgeon who has mastered the anatomy of disease need not himself be sick. Detachment is my scalpel. It cuts to the truth. But I admit, he paused, there are cases where the heart teaches what logic cannot.
Smiling, then you concede a little ground to sentiment?
Perhaps a foot of it. Your influence, my dear fellow, is dangerously contagious.
Narrating, I could not forbear a laugh at his expression, half mockery, half warmth. For all his protestations, I had long known that under the shell of reason there beat in him a heart as brave and loyal as any man's. A telegram arrived that evening, addressed to Holmes in the familiar scrawl of Inspector Lestrade. Holmes tore it open with languid interest.
Reading. Body of Lady Beatrice Norberton interred today with full rites. Sir Robert sailed for France last night. Case considered closed. Well, laying it aside. There, Watson, justice and mercy walking hand in hand. A rare sight in this world.
Narrating. For a while we sat listening to the rain tapping against the window. At length Holmes rose and crossed to the violin that lay upon the table. He tuned it with quick, deft fingers, and soon the room was filled with a low, plaintive melody, something of Mendelssohn, if memory serves, touched here and there with minor chords that seemed to echo the sadness of the gaze we had left behind. Softly, that air suits the story, Holmes, grave yet not hopeless.
Music, my dear Watson, is but deduction in another form, the logical unfolding of tone. Each note compels the next, as each fact compels its consequence.
Half laughing, you would prove next that a fugue is a crime solved in harmony.
Smiling, not a crime, Watson, a mystery resolved.
Narrating, He played on for some minutes, the strains rising and falling like a voice from some distant shore. When at last he laid the bow aside, the silence seemed deeper than before. Holmes, you once told me that when you cease to be surprised, you will cease to live. Or does any mystery still hold your interest after so many triumphs?
The greatest mystery, Watson, remains unsolved.
Hmm. And that is?
Quietly, man himself, his capacity for folly, for greatness, for compassion. Every case is but a footnote to that infinite study.
Narrating. There was something in his tone that struck me deeply, an echo of weariness, perhaps, or of that lonely detachment which had so often haunted him after a case was done. I thought of all the nights we had shared, the chases through fog-wreathed alleys, the sudden flashes of revelation, the quiet satisfaction of truth restored, and I knew, as I watched him standing there in the lamplight, that Sherlock Holmes was more than a mere reasoning machine. He was the conscience of logic itself. You have often said, Holmes, that life is a series of problems awaiting solution. Do you never tire of the endless arithmetic of it?
Sometimes, my dear Watson, I tone, but when I do, I recall that even the dullest fact may conceal the seed of wonder. To reason is to hope that the world, however dark, still obeys a law. That, I think, is enough.
Narrating, the clock on the mantel struck midnight. Outside, the rain had ceased, and the murmur of the city came faint and distant through the wet streets. Holmes, having placed his violin back in its case, turned down the lamp and drew the curtains.
Ah, another chapter closed. Watson, what will you title it in your annals?
Oin, perhaps, the adventure of Shoscombe Old Place.
Apt enough. It had its touches of the grotesque and the tragic, the twin companions of human folly.
And yet, as you said, it ended with mercy.
Smiling faintly, which proves that even logic may occasionally permit a heart.
Narrating, with that final word, he took up his pipe, and soon the blue wreaths of smoke mingled with the last glow of the fire. I sat watching him, the sharp profile, the deep set eyes reflecting the embers, and I thought how many such evenings would yet come and go before that keen mind was stilled. To the audience, so ends the record of the Shoscombe affair, a case less of crime than of conscience. Where deduction, touched by compassion, found a gentler justice. And as I close this entry in my notebook, I can almost hear Holmes's voice across the years, calm and ironic as ever. Elementary, my dear Watson.